measurement, VLSM, and the basic RIP configuration on wireless network. So I saw only few of them are submitted, but see, out of 60, 63, 66, only eight numbers are submitted. All others are still not submitted. I don't know why, what happened, and what's the reason. Okay, make sure that this week that should be submitted. Okay, these two assignment has to be submitted. Okay, so we'll continue with from the last topic where we left. So discussing about RIP, right? So we did some RIP labs. So we understood and when and where we use this RIP, dynamic routing protocol. So what is the one thing we should go for dynamic routing protocol? So because in manual routing or in static routing or something, so it's simply creates an overhead on network administrator, right? So that network administrator has to know each and everything to configure a specific route on the remote destination or remote network. If you doesn't know the proper information on the remote network, probably your packet will be not successfully delivered to your destination. Okay. So that's why we have something called automatic routing information is learned by the router. So some of the routing protocols, dynamic routing protocols are one is RIP, OSPF, and another one is EIGRP. Okay. So if you see these two, so what we are going to study in this and the next class, RIP, is actually an open standard. Okay. So this protocols can run on any of the devices, any of the networking device. Like so, if you take the Cisco device or if you take any other HP or Aruba so and so, so these two routing protocols are open standard. Okay. But if you go for if I go through with EIGRP, that that is only the protocol which is run on Cisco device. Okay. Earlier it is a Cisco proprietary protocol. Now I think that might also be one of the open standard where you could also use on different vendor network devices. Okay. So what is the reason we have this RIP? So where the routers can able to learn about the remote network automatically. We don't need to have any kind of remote network information. Okay. So and it is also reduces uh, uh, the problem like the manual errors which could happens when you are doing some manual routing configuration, right? Obviously, when you do any manual routing configuration, obviously we might be going to do some wrong entering of information to the routing table, right? Probably even you might miss with network address or the bit mask, anything. If you even a slight wrong which has happened, so ultimately the none of the route packets will be routed to the destination network. So that's why we used to have something called dynamic routing protocol. One among them is RIP, and we all did all these things. It's very simple. Okay, so enabling that RIP and defining that the local network which are connected to that router. Okay, so these three are the networks which are locally connected to R2. Similarly, if you look at R3 and R1, so we would be having the different networks which are locally connected to that router. Like for R1, you would say 1.0, 2.0 are locally connected. Similarly, for R2, it is 2.0, 3.0, and 4.0 are locally connected. And for R3, it is 4.0 and 5.0 are locally connected. So you can see in this diagram, so you can easily understand, right? So R1 1.0, 2.0, R2 2.0, 4.0, 3.0. For R3, it is 4.0 and 5.0. So the thing is, this router doesn't know how to reach this network, right? But the one way we could do this reachability is by static routing. So I have to enter this information. So the network address and the subnet mask and what is the next address on this router. Similarly, so for this network also, we have to do for this network on this router. manual entry we have to do it. So but enabling this RIP, so we were not doing anything at all, right? So this router itself is itself able to learn who is the destination network. But this is like there is a problem with this routing protocol, and so we would come to know. So we already know that, right? So this will not be stable if the network if it scales. Okay, there will be instability may arises uh, due to this due to understanding of this working principle of this routing protocol. Okay, so then we are having something called OSPF, where you can extend the infinity of number of outcomes. Means even if you're large, if you have a large network, we can still go for OSPF, but this RIP will not be suitable. So how you can find how these routes are learning from this RIP? So if you check the routing table of the router after enabling this RIP, so we would see something like this. The entries in the routing table to show to see this information, we have to give something called show IP route command. Okay, so here, so we were able to see the different routing information. Okay, these two are locally connected. So okay, and these three were the information which is learned from RIP, isn't it? Similarly, if you look at the same thing, if I checked on router R2, so we would able to see two routes are learning from RIP. And here again at R3, so we were able to see some three routes which is learning from RIP. Okay, having this in this concept, so we would also something we should know what is called RIP timer. So we already discussed in your previous course, right? So the RIP timer has four timers. One is called update timer, invalid timer, and there is something called flush timer and hold on timer. Okay, we all know this, right? Update timer, something this route RIP is still RIP is going to update this routing table information to its sniper for every 30 seconds. Okay, see here you can see RIP timers is something update timer, time between each update means the router every 30 seconds is going to send an update this advertisement, so the its routing updates. Okay, invalid timers is something margin of error for the update. Okay, if something is goes wrong in network, okay, let me open here. If this links fail, so it will keep that route information as invalid for how many times? So is something margin time what we saw here, it is 180 seconds. Okay, for every 30 seconds it will get an update. If it not able to receive an update on that particular network, so it keep that information as invalid, and it will wait for 180 seconds. It means it looks for is there any update for the same route for the network information. Okay, if there is no updates for that network information, then it's going to be an invalid, and that will not be advertised to any other neighbors. Okay, there is something called flush timer. After this invalid, you can see this graph in the left hand side. After this invalid, it will wait another 60 seconds. Means 180 plus 60, it is 240. So it's going to wait for to remove that information from its routing table. Okay, means 240 seconds. Okay, then there is something called hold on timer, which would be between this invalid timer and to the next some extent like 360. 360 means the invalid hold on timer is going to be 180 seconds. So to declare or to see what will be the next path to the proper to that network. So means again it will go with the three steps what we looked at in distance vector: initialization, then sharing, then update. So probably this 180 seconds, this is going to be happen. So that timer, what we call hold on timer. So means up to this to 360 seconds means that will not your packet will not be sent to that particular remote network. So what I can say here means if something is went wrong in this network means you have to wait for how many seconds? 240 seconds. Okay, 240 again 180 means totally you have to wait for 360 seconds to to find the next alternate route to reach that particular network. Okay, that is a drawback, right? Huge drawback. Means for our network it is well and good, but if you look at some enterprise organization like companies are having a network, if they have some downtime around 4 minutes, will be a huge loss, right? So this should not be happen. So then we would having something, the routing protocols called OSPF. So the one disadvantage in this RIP is it is slow convergence. Slow convergence means it takes 4 minutes to converged, means find an alternate path to the destination. Okay, so and one more the thing I have to explain here, the last one. So what you I think you might have done this one, the stub network. Okay, the stub network is something where one side we have RIP and another one is we use something static. Okay, the static routing or any other manual routing. So this what we call stub network. So the point of this what we call stub network means is a network is having both an RIP and then a static routing. So this is what we really do in our real times. Okay, so you can think of this would be our campus network. Okay, so where you see this RIP version one region which is shaded. So it's our campus network, and where you can see this side R3, and beside to this, like this complete network 5.3 would be our ISP. Okay, so here you can see the ISP. Okay, so we used to have a kind of configuration between our net router and the this router, ISP router. It is something from this to this is default, and from this to this it is static. And this kind of configuration you should keep in mind, because later when we do some kind of access control list or any kind of NAT configuration, so we majorly go with this kind of configuration. Okay, I think you might have done this, but no problem if you're not did this. I'll just do this on this experiment, this topology. So I'm assuming this would be the your ISP network, and this is our campus network. Probably if I would have another one more router, so that would be like that will completely be like this. But anyhow, it's not a problem. So even if you want, I'll just add one more here. Okay. So if I want to hack that, then probably that we needed. Okay. I'll just do one thing. I will remove this part. Okay. And I'll just add one more router, and I'll connect between these two. Okay. And from here I'll connect it. Okay. Since this would be 2.1, and then I will assign this with 2.2. Or what I will do, I'll use some other network 3.3 or something. So and I will make this network still be a 2.0. Okay, so I'll go to this particular interface which is 0/0. I just go to configuration 0/0. Then I'll go to this 192 yeah, 192.168.3.2 and auto update. Then here it is slash, it seems like /01. 01 is 192.168 1.2.1, and then I'll click here and I'll change the IP address this to 3.1. So nothing I made change. Simply I changed an IP address and I added one more router here to understand how RIP could be configured within, and how the static and default would be configured between these two. But if you look at now, you cannot be able to access any of this the device which is connected in the okay, ISP network. Okay, I'll just try to ping to one of the ports which is in ISP network. I'm unable to connect because whatever I did in the last time, the configuration on either this router has been removed. Okay, it is now it's fresh and new. Hello. You might have seen in last time before my laptop. So I just changed. I added one router, and you would see this complete in our in-campus network. You would be using RIP, and for this ISP network, we do something this kind of configuration. Means from here to here, it is default, and from here to here, it is static. Okay. So this is what we required, like because the later class when we do this access control or something in that kind of configuration, so we defaultly use this way. Okay, so this inside I will be using RIP, and between my network and your ISP network, we will be using this one. One side is default and another side is static. And default routing, we know that. So we use something 0.0.0.0 and 0.0.0.0 as subnet mask. So every request will be sent to an ISP, and ISP will send that to a particular destination. When it comes to response, it will do route that package to a proper static routing. So which is given that address as our router address. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to doing here. So so it's very simple. You just follow what I do in this command line, and you all are familiarized with this command line, right? So I am in right now in global configuration mode. Enable then config t something will be into a global configuration mode. So then you just enabling RIP, so router RIP, then we will be declaring the network address, which is 192.168.1.0. So then is a one. Then we would be using another one which is 3.0. Okay, so enter, and another one which is connected to this should not be advertised because we will not using this network should be advertised within, because this is the interface which is connecting to the WAN network, right? Means your network, this router is connecting to the ISP network. This interface is WAN interface. Okay, you should not advertise this in an RFP. Once you did it here, what will happen is this is going to be advertised. This your internal network would also advertise to the ISP network. That should not be happened, right? So only within you can advertise. That should not be advertised. Your network information, private network should not be advertised to your ISP network, right? So that's why we are not advertising this WAN interface network. I just I just advertise the which are the network which are connected. So this network and this network. Okay, that's it. Once you did that, so just go here and click on here, and the same thing you have to do it. Okay, so then address which are connected. So the network which are connected. So enabling that RIP. So then let's say network 192.168.2.0 is one network, and 3.0 is another network. Okay, so then after this, okay, to 3.0, then it's an optional to give the subnet mask. Okay, since RIP means it enables version 1, so defaultly it will takes the class full address. Okay, it will not classless, it will class full address. So you can use version 2 for classless. Okay, that's it. Once you did, so you can check the routing table of the router. So then, or after some time, you would able to learn some other routing. See, so in the last time, what I given here, I would only learn two networks. So after some time, see, I would be able to learn one more address, which is from RIP. Okay, this R represent this is the information learned by through RIP protocol. Okay, so if I check this in simulation mode, okay, nothing event has been created. Okay, nothing I have created. Simply if you press capture and forward, okay, or play capture and forward, you here you can see it's created an RIP version 1 packet, and that would be broadcasted to everyone. If I click and open this packet information, uh, okay. Okay, so if I open this packet, which one? This RIP version 1 something. Okay, what you can see here, so this would be broadcast message. Okay, it is not doing unicast, it is broadcast. Means simply this router is going to broadcast to everyone within internal. See, and every 30 second it's broadcast this address. So even if you want to filter this, some of this, uh, you can remove all this. Okay, and miscellaneous, if you remove this STP, STP is enough. Okay, if you remove this and if you click on capture and forward, see every 30 seconds this is going to send an RIP packet. Okay, see every 30 seconds it is going to be sending RIP. So see here, if I open this and you can see here, so it send an RIP packet. So the UDP, it uses UDP protocol in the transport layer, and the source port number is 520, and the destination port number is also 520. So any of the device which has the application or the process which is running at this port number can able to use and they can able to utilize this packet. Other than that, like if any of this device is not running with this port number, it simply deny that packet. Okay, so where this would send, this sends from this interface, right? So it's use this IP address as the source IP address, which is 1.1, and it's use the destination IP as broadcast address. Okay, 255.255.255.255. This is limited broadcast, right? And this is the limited broadcast address which is used, and that will be broadcasted in the single broadcast domain. Okay, because if you look at how many broadcast domain we have here, okay, so it's only one broadcast domain, so that would be broadcasted. Once this is received, so then again on this router also we are running RIP. So then it will make use of this routing information what is sent by this packet. Okay, so and you can here also you can check. So R show run show a root. But here in this mode you cannot do that. But if you are in real mode, you can check that. So this router is not able to learn on this particular network. Okay, probably you're not properly advertised. You just make sure that this advertising, this network should be proper. Okay, if you're not did that in proper way, then probably this will router will not able to learn on that network. Okay, so once you did this, so the next way is configuring from the here to here. It is default, from here to it is static. Okay, so we know that already. Go to the static one and give this IP address as like this. And the next hop is 14.0.0.2. Means from here to here I'm doing static. Means any of the packet address, IP address, and any of this subnet mask, you simply forward that to here. Okay. So from here to here you must do the static. Okay. How you do the static? So static, you know that, right? The remote destination address, then the subnet mask, and the next hop address is 140.1. So this address. Okay. And so I already did that one. So no need to do it again. Okay. Close this. Okay. Once you did this one, so now you would able to ping from this to any of the device in the network. Means what has happened here, if I configured even RIP between these two, so the every network information, okay, your private information, network information would also shared with this ISP. So which are all the networks I'm using within my network, LAN network. So that would also send to ISP, but that should not be happen. So that's why we use this kind of configuration every time between my network to the ISP. So keep that in mind always, between any private network to an ISP, which way they have configured it, configured in this way format. From our network to ISP is default routing, and from ISP to our network is static routing. Understood? Understood this configuration? Yes or no? Any questions? Priyanka, any doubts? Any questions you understood? Rashmita,
No doubt, sir.
okay. Prashant, TP, okay. So you keep in mind always, like we use this kind of configuration between uh, from our network to ISP. Okay, now you can create an event and you can check whether you could able to ping to the destination. Okay, click on this and this, then you will get the status. It's failed first time. If you try one more time, probably you would be able to reach. 10 times also failed. Okay, third time is successful because it has to resolve this DNS and have to find that particular destination and all, right? So probably the third time you will be able to. The configuration is something within my network is RIP, between your ISP is something static and default. Okay, I'm not. You can also enable complete network with an RIP, but so I'm trying to explain like how you do in real time. So when you are configuring any of this network, probably from our network to ISP is default. From there to here, it is something static. Okay. Clear? So all of you all must do this three. So what I've uploaded in the Google Classroom, and every each and every steps have been given. There is no much difference. Okay. So one more command you might have seen here, something passive interface fast Ethernet 0/0. Passive interface Ethernet 0/0 means on this interface it will not going to send the RIP advertisement. That is the meaning of this. Means you can do one more type kind of configuration. So what I've shown here, uh, this one. So if I do the passive interface like passive interface F0/0 on this port, means it's not going to send any of this routing information on this interface. That is the meaning of it. Okay. Okay. And the same thing. Okay. Can do. You can follow this instruction step by step. So you can able to do this properly. If you are not able to understand, you can anytime you can reach me. Okay. So there are three scenarios, one, two, three, and first one is classful. Then here the subnet and the classful network, and the last one is something a part of a network we use an RIP, and a part of a network we use uh, this static routing. Okay, that's all. So the next one we were moving into the next the routing protocol, which is OSPF. Okay. So and one more we have actually. Probably when we do this IPv version 6, I will going to show that this one, RIP-NG, RIP Next Generation Protocol. So with this protocol, we used in next generation IP address, which is IPv6 addresses. So this software, Cisco Packet Tracer, might it will not support IPv6. Okay, only few of them it supports. So we will do this kind of experiment in any like in another tool what we use called JNS3. Okay, probably in another next 3 or 4 class we will start using it JNS3. So there it is completely in command line interface. So we will not get any kind of the GUI whatever we are able to do it in the Cisco architecture. Okay, I'm unable to open it. So I'll just open with this paint to see. Okay. See, libng, RIP next generation protocol is same as your IPv4, the distance vector and 15 op radius, and we know that split origin and poison rivers and so on. So that what we already know either on base version 1 or version 2. Okay. So what is the features you can see in this next generation is, so this protocol is meant for IPv6 version. Okay, your next generation IP. Okay, so means it's use IPv6 for a transport layer and as well as in that is in the network layer. So we know that the IPv6 prefix and what is the next stop of IPv6 address and everything. So then it's use something FF02 colon 909 is the reserved multicast address for RIP updates. So this is the reserved multicast address for RIP updates. So we saw RIP version 1, so which use the broadcast address for the RIP updates, which is 255.255.255.255. But if you see this RIP version 2, it use a multicast address which is 224.0.0.9. So this is the multicast address used by version 2 for RIP updates. So RIP updates means it simply send its complete routing table to the neighbor. Okay, and it updates sent to an UDP port, and the port number is 521. We saw this in the previous one, right, in the simulation. So it's an UDP issues UDP protocol, transport protocol, and the process ID is I-21. Okay, so this is a slight overview on this next generation. Probably when it comes to this IPv6 version kind of configuration, we will more discuss on this RIPNG. So you know that, right? How to write an IPv6 address? It's an hexadecimal. So FF02 ::09 is the reserved IP address, uh, multicast IP address, IPv6 address for RIP updates. Okay. Okay. The next one is very somewhere where uh, uh, complexity would start from here. OSPF. Okay, open shortest path first. Okay, recall your whatever we discussed in your previous course, CCN course. So this uses your Distras algorithm and it is link state protocol. Okay, so it can support infinite op counts. Okay, and the metric we use for in this protocol is bandwidth. Okay, but in RIP we use something called op counts, right? But here we use something called bandwidth. Okay, and we also saw something area border router. Okay, inter area, intra area, so and so forth. So what is this? What is this multi area, single area? How you decide an area for to configure this OSPF, so and so forth? We will discuss today. Okay. So for that, we'll take an example and we'll see how you can configure on this given topology with with an OSPF routing protocol. Okay, so this probably might looks very simple, a diagram which you did in the previous RIP, but instead of using this RIP, we would be using an OSPF protocol as a dynamic routing protocol. So one thing we saw the disadvantage in RIP is it's slow convergent, means it takes 4 minutes to get converged back if something is went wrong on a network. But if you look at in OSPF, so this would be very faster convergent compare with your OSPF. Probably this would takes around 40 seconds or something to get converged if something is went wrong in a network. Okay, means let us say if a part of a network in our campus would not be worked. Okay, and our network is configured with RIP, means you will not able to access that network for 4 minutes. Okay, because means RIP has to again recalculate its algorithm and has to find a next alternate path to reach that network. Okay, but in OSPF we would be like the convergence of this would be very less as you compare with RIP. Okay, and one more thing is, so we would avoiding something called instability in the network. Okay, we saw something in RIP is not fit and it's not stable, right? Something in OSPF, all these things will not be there. Okay, this would support unlimited op count, means even if your network is much larger, we can still use an OSPF as an intra AS routing protocol. So you know that autonomous system, right? So what is intra, what is inter, everything, right? So whatever we are discussing now, all these routing protocols are intra AS, means within the autonomous system, between the autonomous system, which is called inter AS. Okay. So so when it comes to deciding the area, so if you recall this OSPF, when it comes to the configuration, and we know that the procedure of this OSPF, right? So OSPF has something 7 stages. I think we all discussed this in the previous course itself, right? So it has something initial stage, dead state. See, just see this 7 stages. Okay. If you look at this, there are two routers, and if they are like enabled with this OSPF, it's went on through this 7 stages, states or stages, what we call, whatever you call. Okay, the very first stage is down state. Down states means both the routers are like a strangers. Uh, they are not yet start exchanging their routing table. Okay, means we would say the state at which the links between the routers comes up. We call it as down state. Okay, so is what is called down state. So then either this router they start exchanging the allow packets. Okay, so this R1 send an allow packets. Once that is sent, that packet is seen by this R2, and again this R2 would send and reply to that with an unicast. Okay, so this we would be calling as router ID. RID is what you call router ID. Means every router must have a router ID in OSPF, and this would be selected based on. Um, I think you can itself manually configured, or the IP which is an highest which is assigned and the highest assigned IP address in the router. Okay, is could be elected as an router ID. Means let us think of there are four interfaces, and what among these four interface which is the IP address is highest, that will be as the that will be elected as the router ID of that router, something like that. Or else the IP address which is assigned to a loopback address. Okay, that would also be a router ID you can think of. But let us for that let us assume 1.1.1 is a router ID here, and here it is 2.2.2.2. Once this router ID 1.1 send an allow packet with null information, it will send simply an allow packet so that your R2 will send an reply to that with the same router ID 1.1.1.1. Okay, so once the way at which the one router is sending this packet, we say it is initial state, and when it's getting replay, it is two-way state. Means both know it's not a stranger, they are know each other. Okay, okay. The next one is extract state. We call it as so extract state. Then we would have something called DR/BR election if they need it. Means if you are connected this router in such a way, okay, or in called as in a broadcast channel in a broadcast manner, so we would need something called DR/BR election, designated router, non-designated router, okay, or backup designated router. So the election will be happen and will decide among them, they will decide which router is going to be DR and which router is going to be BDR. So let us first, we'll remove this. We'll assume this stage will not be there because this will only needed when you are connected in this broadcast panel. You can see in the left hand side where I'm moving my pointers. If you're connected in this way, then we need something called BDR election. Okay, means among this five, we have to know which would be an designated router and which one would be a backup designated router. Okay, so we'll remove this stage right now because this is point-to-point connection. So after this two-way state, the next state is start state. Means we among these two, so they will be deciding who has to send first. Okay, so means this router, a router ID which is 1.1, is sending its LSA saying I will be having an highest IP so that I will send it first. So means the both will negotiate themselves who has to send the update first, something like that. Once that is what that state what we call extract state. Once that completed means they have decided who has to send first. Then it will be exchanging the proper LSA packets. LSA packet, link state advertisement packet. It will send. So both the side it will send, and once that is received, so then there will be loading state. Loading state is something it keep comparing its database with the packet which is received by the neighbor. So it will compare if something is mixed, it will send that request to that neighbor router saying, I don't have any proper complete information about this network. Please send my complete full stack advertisement. So that is what your LSA full LSA. Full LSA means it will send the complete information about that particular network. Once that is happened on the both the side, so then will the both network or router is get into a state called full state. Okay, full state is something both routers are updated. and they're the uh, ready with uh, this exchanging the routers. Okay, so you understood this seven state. The same thing you should also know when you do this, because this is essential when you do something troubleshooting, when you are not able to ping if you are configured through OSPF or something. Okay, so you can see the acronyms like whatever we have, like database DBDM means what, link state request, link state update, link state acknowledgement, so on and so forth. In LSA, there are lots of different LSA types. So probably we'll look at that in later. But for a moment, so we will understand how to configure an OSPF with a single area, with a single area. Okay, so when comes to the area concept, okay, so let me go through that also. OSPF area types or design rules or something. I'll just look at it. Okay, I'll just open this. So these are all the following requirements when you're designing this open shortest path first area. So when you are enabling this routing protocol, which is OSPF, am I audible? Am I audible to everyone? Yes, no. Okay. And you are able to catch what I'm saying, right? Any doubts, or it's understandable, or you're not understanding anything like that? Understanding? Okay. I'm asking you are understanding or not understanding? Okay. Fine. So the design, the consideration or requirement before you enabling this OSPF, okay. So you will be having a topology. So you will decide which topology should be used before you are implementing, right? So, these are all the things you must keep in mind. So when you are enabling this OSPF or any of the network, okay. So when you are configuring this OSPF, one must you must have what is called area zero. So that is what we call backbone area. Okay, you can create one area, an OSPF with only one area, or you can create an OSPF with multi areas. Okay, so why we use this concept, so called areas, to optimize. Okay, so we'll come to that part later. Okay, why we use this area concept. Okay, so all area must connect to a one backbone area and even the stub areas. Okay, so we will discuss this later, the stub areas, but the moment you must understand, at least you must have one area to configure this OSPF. That area is called as backbone area. And if you have if you have something you are designing with multiple areas, means all the multiple areas should connect to one common area, which is called this backbone area, and what is called default name of that area is area zero. Okay, you can create n number of areas, you can create 1,000 number of areas, but all 199 areas, 1,000 means 999 areas should be connected to one common backbone area, which is backbone zero, sorry, area zero. So, and backbone area must be contiguous and only use virtual links as emergency temporary measures. Okay, if you are not connecting any of the area to backbone area, so we will be having something called virtual area, means you can make one area. So which should be transit between the area which you are not connecting to backbone or the backbone. Okay, so you can make that area as transit area or virtual link or virtual area to that particular area. But that should be only in emergency and temporary measures, and you can use this kind of design rule It's not a permanent way you should design. It's a temporary solution we can give it. Means something after you designed, after that implementation is completed, if something they would need a change in the network and their implementation, probably this could be you could use in that OSP of implementation. So by using something called virtual area concept. Okay. So, but this will not be the way you should design prior or the way which you used initially doing it. Okay. So you can think of this way of designing this OSPF as a temporary solution. Okay. So then what is this backbone so and so? We will discuss that in next class or something. So what I will do, I will going to show you how to configure an OSPF with multiple area, one area, the very first area. Then we'll discuss how to do that with multiple areas. Okay, so it's very simple, like what we saw in RIP. So, so we were defining router and we are giving that routing protocol name OSPF followed by the process ID. Okay, so process ID is something like it identify the OSPF process. Okay, means you can able to run multiple OSPF process on the same device. OSPF 1, OSPF 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, if you don't want to merge any of this process with any of this other OSPF process, so that's to distinguish them, we use something called process ID. Okay, so you can think of this in the same network itself. So this is an STL or service provider network. They have this router, right? So they given service to me, our JC network. Also, they would give NIE and Vidyavardhaka something like that, and all of them are running with OSP of something as a routing protocol. So this process should not be merged with the process which OSPF process which is running between this ISP and the Vidyavardhaka network, and the process which is running between this ISP and the NIE network. Okay, we have to keep the every OSP of process which is running between a and service provider network and our network or Vidyavardhaka or some NIE network. To make this distinct the process which is running on this router, because this is going to run the multiple OSP of process. So in order to distinguish them, we use something called process ID. So that is what here we are mentioning. So router OSP of then followed by the process ID. You can use any number, but that should not be the same on the all other process which is running. This process ID is independent for independent devices. Like if this is one at the service provider, the same process ID should not be at our side. It could be anything, but this one it helps to independently identify at the the service provider router. Okay, means if they have mentioned, okay, is OSP of process 1 as the process ID of this SJCE, so and 2 as NIE or 3 as VVCE. So they would independently they could identify which process is for which network. Means that process ID should not be used from our end. Okay, so that is what this process ID is all about. Okay, process ID parameter. Okay, so then once that is done, so once you get into that router OSP of that, then you just define the network, then the network address. Okay, 16.1.16. Then here this is what is called wildcard mask. Okay, so wildcard mask we know that, right? Wildcard mask is the inverse of subnet mask. Okay, it's inverse of subnet mask. So here in wildcard mask, zeros represent should match, one represent ignore. Okay, in wildcard mask, zero means these three octets should be matched. Means it should be matched with 172.116.1. Means if any of the packet comes to this network, all these three octets should be matched, and the last the 15 what how many digit we have that could be neglected, and we define this area as zero. Okay, and similarly, we would be using the another network as zero. Then you can see again the zero. So 4.0, so and so forth. Means, so we are enabling, see, this would be enabling at in which interface? 0 0/1. This is at 0/0, and this would be happened at. All these are on R1, right? We just given these three commands because these three networks are connected to that router. Okay, R1, see this network, and this network. The same thing how we did an OSP, sorry, RIP. So what I will do, I'll just remove this RIP and I will show you how to configure that OSPF. Okay. So I'll just see a console. Okay. Then enable, and then enter, then I'll just go to configure terminal, then I'll say no router RIP. If I want to remove any of this process which is already running, so say no in front of that every command, whatever you used. No router RIP means it removes that router to the RIP protocol which is running earlier. Okay. So if I show now, if I give this command, show IP protocol, you will see the current running. So you should use do show. Okay, if you are in Google, sorry, if you are in this configuration terminal, you should use uh, protocol. Okay, you will see if you are not getting anything here, means anything is any of the routing protocol will not be running. So then we will be enabling this OSPF. Okay, OSPF 1. Then I say the network. Then the network address is 168.0 dot sorry 1.0 1.0. Then the subnet mask should be 0.0.255. I use class C, right? 255.255.255.0. The reverse of that is 0.0.0.255. Then I would say it is area 0. Okay. So that network is connected over here, right? 1.0 is connected here. Similarly, 3.0 is connected here. So just go back and I'll change this to 3.0. 3.0, then enter. Then I will exit. That's it. Okay, go here and do the same configuration on this router also. So enable config terminal. See if I see here which routing protocol is working. So protocol, you will see if I give this command here, so you'll see the routing protocol is RIP and they're sending updates every 30 seconds and next due is 5 seconds. The invalid timer is 180 seconds, hold on timer is 180, plus time is 240 seconds, outgoing, everything you will be able to get it here. Okay, so I don't want this now, so I'll just no router RIP. That's it. Easy to remove. And if you go back and see the same, you will not get any information. It means that routing protocol is disabled right now. So if you want to enable this OSPF, so you just go back and see OSPF 1. Okay. Then network, which is 192.168.3.0 is 1. The subnet mask is the same, and I'll say area 1, area 0. And you can see the moment I press that enter, see the adjacency. The packet has been built between this router and that router. And the NBR is which one? The neighbor border router is 3.1. Okay, on fast Ethernet, and it is from loading state to full state. Means complete the share the table has been exchanged. Okay, that is the one address, and another one is have to give. Okay, then it is 2.0. It is 2.0, then enter. So then I have to check do show IP route. The moment I give this, something you see, I'm able to learn the same routing information, which is 1.0, and through which routing protocol is it is 0. Means I'm able to learn this routing information with the help of OSPF. Okay. So probably a slight change here with this configuration with that RIP configuration. Okay, do show IP route. Okay, will still able to see this default routing. I've done this previous lab. Okay, so you'd see, and if you check this connectivity, okay, reachability, you just create an event and check this and this. First time it will fail, and next time if you do it, it will be successful. I'm still not able to do this. Okay, I'll try with some other network. Okay, you just keep doing it. If you're not able to ping, you check and troubleshoot what is happening. Okay, means you have to check whether so this router is also able to run, because in my network is this router is not able to run because this is actually is not properly loaded. If I reboot this, I think probably I would able to get ping, or I would able to reach from any of the network to any network. And once you're done with this, okay, you just check with this simulation mode, and also you have to put this screenshot in your report also. You just disable every other protocols. Okay, you just enable only this RI OSPF one. You remove all these routing protocols or any all other protocols. Okay. And similarly, when it comes to IPv6, you remove everything because I'm not using IPv6. IPv4, you just put OSPF. That's it. Close it and you just capture and forward. If I open this OSPF advertisement packet, so the outbound packet is something you see, right? Forward and capture and forward and capture and forward. See, the header is this, and it is 224.0.0.5 is the multicast headers used for OSPF advertisement. So this is sending an OSPF hello packet, and this the next address is the broadcast address. It doesn't do the broadcast. Instead, it will write a multicast address. Okay. So is it clear? The same thing you should follow here also. The same thing what I explained and how you are configuring this on each and every router and how to verify this. Something it can also see who is the neighbor of that OSPF by giving this show IP OSPF neighbor. You can check this. Probably when do the next labs and all, probably we'll do much in detail on this. At the moment, you should do this what experiment that I explained configuration through OSPF. Any doubts? Any doubts? Understood. Karthik, what's your doubt? You can unmute mic and ask. Okay, 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 Karthik. Probably by doing this with simple experiment, I think you would not be understanding like this kind of thing, because we can only uh, uh, take a limited number of routers. So when we deals with a very big networks like 100 to 200, 300 out of routers, so then it will be a very challenging task to configure this OSPF. So because this OSPF itself a big a ocean, because to understand this OSPF, I think it need 20 to 15 classes. Okay? Because there are lots of things to understand this OSPF. But we do the very basic things, and you should understand it, like how this could be used and how you can configure and all those things. That's it. So this OSPF and BGP, these two routing protocol, even I could itself can take two different independent courses. I can keep talking for one semester, complete semester on OSPF, or can keep talking for one whole semester on BGP itself. But as per our syllabus, we'll go with so some extents where to understand this OSPF and its behaviors and its working. Okay, so I will upload this document also. You do it. You just follow the same thing. Do it, and if you're not able to do any of the stage steps here, you can come to me. Okay. Thank you. We'll stop today's class. We'll continue in the next class.